Hello viewers, well, what follows here is an extended podcast chat looking at Assetto Corsa, looking at our feelings so far. This was recorded pre-patch. The patch has fixed a couple of bits and pieces that we've encountered that we talk about in this video, and at the end of the video I'll talk a little bit about that. But here we are then with our podcast and some initial impressions and reaction on Assetto Corsa. Hello viewers, well, Assetto Corsa is going to be released tomorrow on the Xbox One and PS4. It's something we've been looking forward to for a long time. Covering news on the title now for the past 4 years, we've seen it develop and grow on the PC. And of course, with the release of Project Cars last year, it was a sim title that paved the way for sims on the consoles. It proved there was a market there, and now we're going to see a more hardcore sim in terms of Assetto Corsa. And of course, the success of Assetto Corsa will determine, as a plane flies over, it will determine whether we see more sim titles in the future and how simmy and how detailed the physics on those titles get. So, guys, we've been playing it now for, last few days. Obviously, we've been playing a limited amount because pre-embargo there are limited amounts we can show in particular. But Martin, kicking off for yourself, what's been your feeling so far on it?
Yeah, on the whole, as a pure driving simulation, it's absolutely fantastic. It's not without issue, but I mean, graphically, it does have a few issues. There's no getting away from that. Although we're a little bit hesitant about that because obviously it might still get patched up. But you do notice things, little defects like the screen tearing and little drops in the frame rate. But as a pure driving simulation, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, Project Cars, obviously that kind of paved the way a bit for, as you said, for the sim market to kind of flourish on console.
Yeah.
But that had more of a kind of motorsport focus, whereas on this there are more road cars to play with, so it has that sort of Gran Turismo comparison. I mean, God, the handling it's really hard to fault the car handling, I must admit. You can really see that's where all their focus has gone into, just getting the physics as advanced and as realistic as possible, yet still intuitive.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Gran Turismo because with the road car connection and that, but it's very much a different title, isn't it? Because there's no sort of tuning, and it's a much more sort of serious title. So it'd be interesting to see how Gran Turismo plays.
Yeah, there's no gimmicks. There's no you can't wash your car and stuff like that, or
no.
It's not really about car collecting, is it? It's just purely about the drive, pretty much.
Yeah, this is all about the driving, and I think that's what they even said that themselves. This isn't a car collecting game. This is about finding a few cars in particular that you just love driving. You start doing laps in them, and you find that the hours just fly by. And that's a regular thing with Assetto Corsa on the PC. People regularly say, "Wow, I just did 2 or 3 hours of hot lapping, and I just got into the flow." And that's because it takes so many laps to dial yourself in. Yeah. And then when you get dialed in, you just want to keep on going quicker. So you feel that kind of flow of driving a real car, essentially. And I think the thing is with a sim is, people think it's going to be really hard, and to an extent it is. It's hard in the sense that there's limitations in what you can do. There's a particular way to attack the course. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's not as hard as people think it's going to be. No, your car's not going to spin off every time it touches a curb. Cars are quite durable. They can take quite a lot in terms of grip and sliding and everything else. There's a lot of stability there, and it's important that to simulate that model, they wanted it to be something that was based on real life, but in actual fact, real life is relatively approachable. He said you don't crash every time you get in your car and drive down to the shops.
Yeah,
it's not hard to drive a car.
Exactly. If you drive like that in Assetto Corsa, you're not going to crash. But
no.
It's only when you start really pushing, you're going to get the wheel out on the turns and things like that. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so in terms of the driving model, it's the same as it is on the PC. But we're going to talk a little bit about the console. I'm going to just have a moan. There's a couple of elements of the console version which I think need to be looked at, and I'm hoping that they're going to be fixed in the patch. So I think what's important is about our discussion here is we're seeing a pre-patched version, and it's important that the patch, and we're sort of mid-review process now. This isn't a final review. This is just a few things. Well, firstly, the driving as ever is great in Assetto Corsa. When you're playing with your wheel in particular, it feels really nice. The controller implementation is excellent so far. I'm impressed with it. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be refined. I'm not saying there aren't settings that you can play with to improve it for how you drive, but I think in terms of pick up and play, it's much more approachable than, say, Project Cars.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've had an issue with so far, and I think this is important, is the automatic gearbox. Now, why automatic gears, some of you may cry? Well, basically, yes, a lot of you that listen to this channel will jump onto manual, get into a car, do some laps, and you'll be serious drivers. But what's important for Assetto Corsa to be successful is it needs to appeal to the noob. It needs to appeal to the driver who's not experienced at doing laps, who doesn't know about racing line. And unfortunately, at the moment, the automatic gearbox leaves a lot to be desired. Now, the problem with the automatic gearbox is when you're under braking, you're going into a corner, so you're in 6th gear, you're going into, say, a 3rd gear corner, you hit the brakes, you come off the brakes, you turn into the corner, the car remains in 6th gear, doesn't change gear, so you're in the wrong gear for the corner. Then when you hit the apex, sometimes the gearbox just suddenly realises, hang on, I'm in the wrong gear, and it starts shifting down, and that affects your wheels, it affects your wheel spin, it affects your balance, and it usually sends you off the course. Now, it's drivable when you have a newish car, where the gearboxes are quite seamless. But when you're driving something like a Lotus 49, you're going into a 2nd gear corner in 4th gear, it's all over for you. The car just does not handle it. Now, you do have a button where you can, even when automatic gears, you can shift down. Yeah. And I found myself doing that to get into the corner, but that's not acceptable. No. And it needs to be an automatic gearbox for noobs who can't drive. Remember, a lot of these sales need to go to people who've never driven a simulator, and the level of concentration required to keep the car on the road means people are just going to want to accelerate, brake, and concentrate on their driving and their line. And if they want to progress to manual, they can. I mean, I'm somebody personally who, I drive manual all the time with a steering wheel. With a control pad, I don't tend to so much.
I'm the same, actually. Too much F on the control.
I'm a bit lazy. I used to do all my glitch shifting on Project Golf and Racing 3, and I used to use manual all the time and all that. But that was back in the day. Yeah. Now I use the wheel and of course the controllers for automatic. So for me, that's been an issue. I don't know if it's fixed in the final game. We'll have to investigate that. One thing noted by eagle-eyed viewers has been the timer in game is slightly different to real life. That's something which, to be fair, I've not noticed many games before. It's not, I would need to look at more games to see if other games have the same problem. It's quite possible. It's not something I've ever noticed before, but it's certainly something we can come back to. It's not a major gaming issue for me on the whole. As long as the timer's the same for everybody, then it will record laps the same for everybody. That's the main thing there. At least it works in its own way. For me, it's about the fundamental driving and the handling, and they can patch and fix everything else. But apart from the automatic gearbox, we do have the screen tearing, which is quite significant.
It's quite distracting, I have to say. I don't always notice it in games sometimes. No. People go on about, it has screen tearing, and like, does it? But on this one, it is very noticeable.
It is very noticeable, and I think what's important is that it wasn't as noticeable in our early build that we tested a few months ago, looking at Spa. We did see screen tearing in the replay, but we didn't see so much in the actual gameplay itself. So in the earlier build, we didn't see this as much. So quite possibly it's something that can be patched out as well. Either way, it's quite significant visually. I'd say one of the biggest issues I've come up against is probably on the Xbox One version at the moment, and that's a bit of frame rates with freezing, if you like. Certain circuits where the frame rate is freezing, it's like it's going quite smoothly, then you get a stutter, a really bad stutter, and at the moment that's quite difficult to deal with at times. So again, all these things I highlight to you are pre-patch version, and I hope that they get fixed, and they might be fixed by the time the game's released, and we'll test it again and see how.
Probably not quite as broken as Project Cars was when it first came out.
You know what? It probably isn't, and you know that it's very difficult to say. I mean, when we tested Project Cars, I don't think people realised at the time there was no online, and there wasn't, the one-player mode was actually closed. All we had access to was the free run mode. So, anything that was buggy or glitchy never really was very apparent. And the key things that we did find, we were told were going to be patched for release, and of course the release patch didn't fix those. So where this is concerned at the moment, it seems it needs some optimization here and there. There's bits and pieces to do, but whether they do that in time for the patch, we'll just have to wait and see. Kevin, go, Mike.
One problem, I guess, could be the fact that it wasn't obviously designed primarily for the consoles in mind initially.
Well, there is that. I mean, they've had to wait for, obviously, console tech to get where they need it to be. They've had to work hard in terms of their processing, in terms of optimizing the processing for the amount of physics and AI data to be, converted to a console. There's no doubt that the consoles have enough power to run this game. It's just really about optimizing it and optimizing the console performance. We don't really know how the performance is broken down, but Kevin, you've played it the most. You've just put a video up with assists on and assists off as well as I'm talking, and some people were not very happy that you haven't mentioned the difference. So I thought I'd give you a chance in this video to talk a little bit about that, and talk about your experiences so far, just going through the one-player game and the differences between PS4 and Xbox.
Yeah, it's interesting. The assists on video. I didn't have a lot of time today, so I had to quickly sort of knock that one up. But basically, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the assists on is actually the assists off and vice versa, because I was a lot smoother with the assists off. And the reason for that is because you have that sort of constant fear of losing control of the car. It really does sort of channel you into being careful with the accelerator, brake and steering inputs. It really does sort of hone you, make you a much careful driver, and you're really sort of on edge, if you like. And you sort of, you're frightened to put too much accelerator on, brake too hard and whatnot. So you get better at your racing lines because of it, just because of that fear of losing the car. Whereas with assists on, that fear is gone pretty much. So you're more reckless, you're more aggressive. And if you look at the video, my lines were nowhere near as good on the assists on, so I felt much more comfortable. Well, at least my racing craft was a lot better with the assists off. Because with the assists on, it just removes that fear, and you just sort of throw it around the corners and whatnot. So it was an interesting comparison, I thought. But I should have actually mentioned that in the video. But time was a little bit limited today, sadly. So
that's all right. That's all right. Now, you were saying there that your assists off. I'm a bit confused by that, because I would expect your assists on to be perfectly on the racing line, but your assists off to be more suffering understeer because you've not got the assistance there. Grip-wise and balance-wise.
Yeah, I think it was just a case of, with the assists on, I got more sort of complacent. I was just throwing the car around, whereas with assists off, I respected the car more. I think that was, in a nutshell, with the assists off. So I just had a better racecraft because of that.
In terms of driving, did you find the assists on much easier?
I think it felt more intuitive with the assists off.
Right, so you actually found it, I mean, for say a beginner playing this game,
yeah,
you actually found it easier with assists off for a beginner or assists on? Because for me, stability management adds a lot in terms of balance to the car. I find the back end can get away from you with stability management off, and I like to have it turned on quite often.
Yeah, I mean,
stability.
Are you kind of saying it's more natural without assists off then?
It feels, for me personally, it feels. I think it felt a little bit more natural, because I had the fear of the car's weight. I didn't want to upset the car. I just had more respect for the car, basically. Whereas assists on, I was just throwing it around. If you're a beginner to the game, I would say go for assists on, certainly.
Yeah.
But as you get a little bit better, just bring the stability control down, maybe by 10% increments, and see how you get on with that.
It could just be because you have a better understanding of how the car's going to behave without the assists on.
Probably, yeah. I do a lot of assists off driving in games, so it just felt more intuitive to me personally. But of course, other people will find it different. Depends on how much experience you've got, I imagine. But if we want to go back to the frame rate and stuff, some tracks it's the screen tearing is almost every time you turn in some tracks.
Yeah.
It's really bad. Is
that on both consoles though, PS4 and Xbox One?
Yeah, I think the Xbox One's a little bit worse. And just when stuff goes past the screen, at 60 frames per second, you're driving past like signs and bits and pieces of the trackside detail. It should go past very smoothly. At 60 frames, it should transition very smoothly. But even on the PS4 and the Xbox One version, you're getting sort of stuttering. Stuff comes past you, it stutters. So you're not getting that smooth transition as it whizzes past you. So to me, it's not 60 frames because of that. It's sort of stuttering a bit, struggling a bit. But like you say, we don't know how much the day one patch will actually fix these issues. But it does seem like an awful lot of stuff to fix. So I'm not exactly holding my breath that the day one patch is going to make everything perfect, sadly.
Yeah, I mean the day one patch is, does have a lot to do. I mean, you've got optimization on both formats. I think it's fair to say that the frame rate is better on the PS4 than it is on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
I think that the frame rate hasn't made a great deal of improvement since we played it in January, because if you watch the original video of the Ferrari FXXK, you'll see, I think, the frame rate there in the replay isn't quite where it should be. I think we've mentioned in the video, it's still being a work in progress.
Yeah.
And it hasn't actually made any progress since then. So in terms of the game at the moment, yeah, you've got I think the automatic gears have got to be sorted. I think the tearing needs to be looked at. I think the frame stuttering in particular, rather than low frame rate, the stuttering needs to be looked at, and of course general improvements overall. Obviously the PS4 version is supposed to be 1080p, whereas the Xbox One is 900p.
Mm-hmm.
So there is sort of the resolution. They could always drop that a bit to get the frame rate up, but there's lots of little tricks they can do, and it's about looking at what's using all of that vital memory. But either way, I think that there is that. But getting away from the graphics for the moment, let's talk a bit about the game and the cars and the driving. Let's talk about the good part. This is one of the best simulators ever made, and I think that we've kicked off with a bit of doom and gloom here.
A little bit.
I think partially because the audience these days, everybody wants to know what's wrong with something. And recently we had No Man's Sky released, that basically crashing constantly. And people want to know. They want to know, do I have a solid product day one? And that's the question we can't answer there. But what we can tell you is that the physics model is amazing.
Yeah.
If you've got a steering wheel, it's the closest you've got to driving. And I think this game deserves, as another police car goes past, goodness me, it deserves to be successful for that, in that sense. So, Kevin, you've been playing through some of the different cars. What have you been your experience on them? And Martin as well, because you've been playing it as well. What's been your experience, guys, on kicking off, Kevin, with the different cars?
Well, just before we got on here, I was driving the Lamborghini Countach around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And I've got to say, it was absolutely incredible experience. It was probably the most fun I've had in a racing game. I mean, it was amazing. Just the feeling of weight in the car. I've turned up my force feedback as well. I think if it starts you off, the default setting is pretty high on the force feedback, so I put it right down low. But I turned it up again, and it just feels fantastic. It gives you so much feedback. You feel the weight of the car, you feel exactly what it's doing through the steering wheel, gives you that sort of tactile feedback. A fantastic experience. The laser scan tracks, of course, so the Nürburgring has never felt more realistic. And to me, it's driving heaven, basically. This game, this sim, is probably the best I've experienced, it gives me the best driving experience that I've ever experienced. So it's pretty awesome.
Pretty positive. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. As a pure driving simulator, it's hard to think of anything better at the moment, to be honest. I think what really strikes me, though, is the fact that you can really sense that every car handles uniquely. I think in some games where they have like hundreds and hundreds of cars, not mentioning any, but you do sometimes find that they handle you can note that they're quite similar in handling, but on here, every car feels unique and feels as it is in real life, basically.
Yeah, every car has its own personality.
Yeah, they've really captured that, I think.
And what a lot of people do is, if they don't get on with a car, they'll change the settings so they can sort of work around it. Whereas I don't like doing that. I like treating every car as it is. I like to leave things as standard as I possibly can. And I just put it down to the personality of each individual car.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I love to, if a car's a handful, well, it's a handful in real life. This is a true-to-life sim, if you like. So I want to experience what that car's like to drive out of the factory. To me, that's brilliant.
What I love as well is the little details as well, like the fact you can actually drive the cars on factory settings. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing no other game has really let you do that before on console.
No, that's
And,
right. So you got the off, you got the on, you got the factory setting. So it's a great little option.
Well, I mean I mean, if they've sort of had that in Project Cars, they've had sort of a standard setting like that, and I think it really came about because constantly people were saying to me, "Oh, we want assists off, we want assists off, we want assists off," and you know, then you drive something like a Le Mans car that's built, designed with traction on, and they're just undrivable. And you say, well, actually, why would you want to simulate a car and then turn off one of the actual systems that the real car functions with?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's important to drive the car as it was designed, and that's why I think traction control is very. And these cars are designed to have traction control.
Yes.
It's like new modern racing bikes designed to have traction control.
I do love the fact that you can actually turn the traction control on and off just on the fly by pressing a button on the wheel, like you would in real life.
Yeah.
Not many console games have really let you do that. You have to go back into a menu to do it. But it's like they're doing everything they can not to interrupt the driving. That's I think that's the main thing.
Yeah.
They want to keep you so immersed in the driver you can just change the settings on the fly like that. I know PC gamers are quite used to that probably on their sims, but for us console gamers, it's a novelty.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the sound as well is fantastic. You have to play this game through a speaker and turn it up loud, and it just adds. The handling is phenomenal. The sound is fantastic. Graphically, it's not quite up to the levels of the sound and the physics, but
Well, it's considered it's still a good-looking game. It's like you said, it's not quite as you can tell. It's a
bit of a downgrade,
perhaps. But,
a bit of a downgrade from the PC version, but
yeah, it's going to look like I don't know. Is it going to look like something like medium settings on a PC? Maybe. I'm not sure.
It's a bit below that now. I think it's actually. I think when they actually all said and done, this. I think don't forget again. We were playing with one car on a course earlier this year. I'm saying that we did have a race. No, we did have an Audi race, and it was running quite well. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be running as well as it was in some respects. But either way, you got to remember the thing with game development is they add stuff and then they optimize it, and then they add stuff and then they optimize it, and so on. And I think in this process, they've added lots and lots of components together for the game. It's been a case of putting it all together. The main thing that's fun is that the fundamental driving experience in car works. They have brought in that forward camera view. That works. What doesn't work for me is the behind car view.
yes,
Let's talk a bit about that for a moment. Now, the behind car view is weird. It's just plain weird because you turn into a corner. It's like the car's hovering. It's like the back end sort of slides around, and it's not. And also every time you change gear when you're braking, the distance between you and the car changes, and it affects your turning. Kevin, you've played it more. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like an arcade style chase cam, isn't it? Because you've got a lot of movement in the camera. The car's sort of moving around a lot. It's almost like something you'd see in like Need for Speed Shift title or something. But to see it in a hardcore racing sim is really quite odd.
Yeah, it is unusual, isn't it? It's strange the way the car sort of moves around from side to side.
Yeah, it's like bobbing about all the time unnaturally.
It's got an oscillating type. It's very weird motion to it, and it doesn't seem glued to the ground based on its tyres. It doesn't seem like that model is leaning. It's almost like the whole simulation was done with you sitting in the car. It wasn't designed for you to actually see the car running. I think that's something which again has been sort of tacked on for the console version, but wasn't necessarily how the game was designed.
Yeah, it's not translating the physics, is it?
No, and it's strange, very strange. And we do have another issue actually as well. I know we're coming up with them, but there are a few, and that's replays. And another thing we've come up with is that replays currently don't record the replay for the entire race.
No.
They only record the replay for the second half of the race. Now we run a lot of multicam videos here on VVV, and of course we can't do those because we can't get a replay that lasts for the entire race. So that's again a strange one, because if there's one thing I've liked about Assetto Corsa, it's been amazing replays. So and the replays that we played again in January worked fine. So a lot of these problems weren't in the game, a few months ago on the early build. It sort of appeared recently. So I'm hoping again they can patch that.
I don't know why it's happening, but it seems to be happening for us. It's happened to you. It's happened to me. So we'll see what happens there as well. Curious issues.
Yeah, there is actually one more thing as well. If you change between like a controller and a wheel, like if you turn the game off and you last played with a wheel, if you jump back on with a controller, you'll get to the track in your car and you'll be stuck in neutral. You can't go anywhere. And what you have to do is go back into the options and actually tell the game that you're now playing with a controller. and vice versa is the same. So it's one of those sort of annoying things that hopefully will get patched out, because I do find it a little bit odd that you have to go back to the menu to tell the game what device you're actually playing with, where it should recognise that from the outset.
Yeah, I think again that's a PC related issue, because on the PC you do have to restart your game if stuff like that sometimes. So it could be that could be something. It could be a way of doing things differently. But interesting point, Kevin. It's something which on console it should pick it up. So little things, isn't it? We've got this amazing driving simulator, but we've got these little bits and pieces, I think, that need to be fixed. I haven't seen any of the career mode. Kevin, what's been your first impressions of the career mode?
Very extensive, actually. I was surprised just how extensive the career mode was. It starts you off very easily, much like in, say, like Gran Turismo. So you drive your little R-Bar 500 with its 195 bhp, I think it is. But I guess where it differs from Gran Turismo is it's not long before they stick you in something a bit more beefy. So although it's a gentle start initially, you soon get up to the more sort of serious cars. But it's interesting because at the very start of the career mode, they give you like a time trial at a track. So you satisfy the time trial. You've got your gold, your silver, and your bronze medals, each with a corresponding time. And once you've completed that, you actually have a race at the very track you've just done the time trial in. And they repeat that again for the next couple of races. So it's a nice way of easing you into the action. But it's not long before you're sort of jumping into something more powerful. And I think that's reflective of the car list, because there's not too many sort of low-powered cars. There's a lot more sort of serious street racing cars in the game. So far, very good impression so far. Lots of fun. Even the small cars like the R-Bar 500, it's got 200 horsepower, but it's still a bit of a handful. So you still got to be mindful of, you can't really abuse the car too much, because it still has, about a ton of weight. You're still sort of throwing around a ton of car around the corner, so you still got to be somewhat on the, you've got to be on the ball still. So it's a lot of fun, and very extensive. Like I say, it's going to take a long time to get through it, and you have to actually work your way through systematically, because every event has to be unlocked. So all but one of the tiers or categories within a tier is locked. So you very much have to start at the beginning, and you have to progress through. And the way you progress through is you have a set amount of gold, silver, and bronze medals that you have to get before you progress to the next. It's not to say you need to gold every race or event. It's quite lenient, at least early on it is. So you might get, say, 3 bronze medals out of 5 events to progress to the next series, and you just sort of work your way up into more and more powerful cars. And initially you're racing just the odd race here and there, but as you progress, you unlock championships and stuff like that. So I'm very much looking forward to sort of getting stuck into the championships and seeing what it's all about.
Yeah, and of course from that as well, I look forward to seeing your videos testing out the online aspects of the game. I know there's a lot of questions coming about leaderboards, online lobbies, concerns about lobbies. You can't set up private lobbies, which is a big deal to those who run leagues. And also online replays as well, to see what there is there. So a lot to investigate still.
Yeah, at the moment, the online menu, it just shows you can sort through the lobbies via you can sort by car or by track, and also by ping. But we just don't know after the day 1 patch, what sort of features they're going to implement into the online components. So there's not really a lot we can say about it at the moment.
I think this is what surprises me when we see day 1 reviews out on games like this. There'll be reviews coming out from tomorrow on Friday, and you think, how can people review it when the final patch isn't there, when there's been no online gaming and they've not tested that aspect at all. It seems amazing that people can say, I've done the whole thing, that's it, that's the end of it. And I think really you need a complete picture on it. So we'll hold off until we have a more detailed vision of the whole game. And like you say, these elements will come together. Now, the other thing people have been asking me is which DLCs have been included in the game. The Dream Pack DLCs are all in there.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Yep.
Yeah, the Japanese pack and the Red Pack are the ones that people are concerned about. Now, we've seen elements of the Red Pack in the launch trailer for the game, but they're not in the game. And I've put the official response actually on that assist on off video, and I'll just get this here as well. I'll bring it up, read it here. Just bring it up. So let's see if I've got it here. And it's not coming up. Here it is. So all the Dream Packs will be included at launch, and I believe the plan, this is the, I quote, I believe the plan is to bring all DLC to consoles in time. So the answer is in time. That's the answer to, and there's nothing more clear than that. Crazy, really, that the footage has been included in the launch trailer, but I'm guessing, I would guess from that the Red Pack and Japanese Pack will be coming to the full game. I mean, that's all I can guess from that at the moment.
I think too as well, though, I think some of them might be included in the Prestige edition that you can buy. I think it's a game. They have like an exclusive edition with extra cars in it.
Right, interesting.
That might be why they included it in the launch trailer.
Do we know anything about that Prestige edition?
I'm going to get that set. I believe the Ford Mustang was in the trailer, and that is part of the Prestige pack. For example, let me just get this. So it costs a bit extra. It's $37.99 at the moment, and the extra cars you get are. Pre-order the Prestige edition now to receive exclusive access to the Prestige pack. Comes with 9 cars. You get the Audi A1, Audi R8, BMW M4 Coupe, Chevrolet C7 Stingray, Ferrari 488 GTB, Ford Mustang 2015, Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera, Nissan GTR, and the Toyota GT86.
Right.
So there you have it.
Great selection there as well.
Very nice. Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed some of those aren't in the main game.
I'm disappointed as well, actually. I think it should have been in the main game, absolutely, because the main game needs it, unfortunately. It does need a bit more variety, doesn't it?
I'd rather not be available separately in a DLC pack.
I think it's got to be. It's got to be available.
Probably will be. They did the same thing with Project Cars with the limited one. There's like a handful of separate cars, but this is what they do now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it is now. I know everyone's doing it, aren't they? You know, all the racing games, all the different games, bit of DLC at launch, and something else that's behind a paywall of some kind. But as I say, it's some good cars there. There's going to be lots more cars coming, tracks coming. Kunos are going to support this. I think what's good about this is that Kunos are going to throw everything at this. I mean, when Assetto Corsa launched on the PC, had a few problems. Within a few weeks, there was patch after patch. They fixed everything so quickly with big lists. I can see the same thing being here in console. They'll probably listen to this video. They probably won't be very happy with some stuff we've said, but I hope they see the positive side of the fact that if these bits and pieces, which are just relatively small in the scheme of things, if they can be, saying that, the automatic gears and the frames freezing isn't, but if they can fix these things, then they've got a nice solid product there, and I think that's what's really important about moving forward with Assetto Corsa. And I think if they work on it, they develop it, they bring the new tracks, they bring the new cars, they have a growing title there. And it would be great to really build a community around this as well. So, guys, I'm going to leave it there with you all now. Thanks for the time, giving me your thoughts on it today. So that's it for now, viewers. Lots more Assetto Corsa content to come on the channel. Do let us know what cars and track combinations you'd like to see. At some point, we'll also be doing some online racing as well, so lots more content to come on the channel, and lots more Gamescom content as well. I'm going to be getting through that over the next few days while Kevin continues through the career mode as well on Assetto Corsa. But that's it from me for now. As ever, more soon.
So, the patch has been deployed since this video was made. And you can see here below me, you can see before and after, the frame sort of stuttering. You know, it wasn't just low frame rate, there was a severe stutter. That's actually been improved now after the patch. I wanted to show this because there are some videos going around the net pre-patch that I felt weren't necessarily representative for the final game, and that's why we've been sort of holding on really, and also we've been under embargo, so we can't show these courses, modes or anything else, but now we can dive in there. So it's nice to see an improvement has been made. Also, regarding automatic gears, it seemed, I don't know if they've done much, but it seemed to be a little bit better. But however, the footage you've seen in this video early on was recorded today after the patch, so clearly I was entering corners in 6th gear and I can elsewhere. It's to do with how you ride the brake, how much speed you maintain. If you carry a high entry speed into the corner on the limit, it just won't change down gear. I think that's quite important at this stage. And of course there are various other little bits and pieces which we haven't noticed to fix to. So the game itself, we've enjoyed the game greatly, but there are these little issues, and the screen tearing really needs some optimization here and there as well at the moment. But I just wanted to share that with you. We don't know all the contents of the patch, but I have no doubt that Kunos will be working flat out to sort out the bugs and issues that they're getting at launch and work their way through those as quickly as possible. But we wanted to share that with you, and there'll be more from me and everyone else on the channel very soon.